Welcome back to A Course in Miracles, Episode 9. In today's episode, we're going to break down a term that the Course uses very often and reveal what it is really trying to get at by using this term. That term is the body. And as you'll see from this episode, it means a whole lot more than just believing that you are a physical meat suit living in a world. So we're going to talk about why the body is the ego's ultimate tool for deception and how we can transcend our identification with it. Anyone who seeks liberation from suffering must eventually go beyond the belief that you are a body. Because first and most importantly, all suffering comes from the belief that you are the body. Because it is essentially equating yourself with something that is finite. What is eternal cannot be threatened or harmed in any way. So in order to believe that something about you has been damaged or lost or changed, you must first believe that what you fundamentally are is something temporary. This is the foundational belief behind all identification with the body. I am something that is lacking, incomplete, and impermanent. The ego absolutely needs you to believe this in order to have any influence over you. But the question is, why does the ego need you to believe this? Well, the ego is primarily our psychological survival tool that has been built through evolution. So in order to motivate us to protect and improve ourselves, which is what evolution always wants you to do, there must first be something to protect and improve. This drive to constantly improve and defend yourself was given to you by Mother Nature. It has served us very well in our evolutionary past, but at this stage in our evolution, it has become obsolete and actually causes us far more harm than good. On our quest to transcend the influence of the ego, it can sort of seem like there's been some kind of mistake that we're attempting to now correct. But this is simply how all evolution works. Once something becomes more of a hindrance to survival than a help to it, evolution begins the process of discarding it. This very video is evidence of that process happening in the human collective. We are evolving out of the ego and into the awareness of love and oneness. How long this will take us to achieve collectively, nobody knows. But you can help speed up the process right now by going beyond the ego yourself. And the first step to doing that is transcending the belief that you are this body. The spirit is pure consciousness, formless and without any objective quality. So in order for consciousness to have any experience, it needs a mind to filter itself into. In order for a mind to have an experience of itself in 3D reality, it needs a body to filter itself into. So all bodies are created through the process of evolution. And part of what evolution puts into a body is a brain that controls the body's movements and actions neurologically. This is why many spiritual masters refer to the ego as the body-mind, because it is quite literally the mind that comes with this human body. So ego is nothing more than the body's software program that gives you the sense of being a body. And how does it do that? Simply by claiming credit for everything the body does. But in reality, the body's just moving and reacting to life automatically and spontaneously. It moves in perfect accordance with the intentions of the mind. There's no entity up there physically operating all of the body's movements. This is an extremely obvious truth once it's investigated. And the only reason that we don't come to this realization sooner is precisely because we don't investigate this assumption. In fact, we never even question it. Because the ego is a product of human evolution, its primary concern at all times is where you stand in the social hierarchy, meaning the way that other people see me is of primary importance. So it's very helpful to notice that the ego only claims credit for whatever bodily actions it believes are going to push it up the social ladder. But actions that it believes might push it down the social ladder, the ego claims no credit for. For example, let's say that you're studying with some of your friends in the library and your stomach growls from hunger. Imagine if one of your friends turned to you and said, "Would you shut up? You are being so rude and selfish right now." Nobody claims credit for anything the body does that's seen as embarrassing. But if the body can slam dunk a basketball, for example, the ego's quick to say, "I did that. Yes, that was me." Really? You were the one who contracted every muscle fiber and moved the blood through your veins and fired the neurological synapses that control the kinetic chain of movement? Or did you just simply have the intention to slam dunk the basketball and the body did it for you? So let's not be so arrogant to rush to these assumptions that we are the body who's doing all these actions. Maybe it's possible that we are simply the consciousness that is witnessing the body. This belief that I am the body comes hardwired into the human psychology. But when you introduce just a little bit of skepticism, this assumption breaks down very quickly. If I asked you the question, how many things about your body do you actually do? You might say, well, I can move the limbs of my body and I can make my mouth talk. I definitely am the one doing that. So right off the bat, out of billions of chemical and biological reactions happening inside the body every second, you can control 2 of them. That's a pretty small percentage, but okay, sure. You move the body's limbs and you speak for it. But are you really sure that you're the one doing that? Let's use the scientific method in our approach to this question. We come up with a hypothesis, I am definitely the body, and then we seek to disprove it. So I ask you, how do you know for a fact that the body isn't just reading your mind's intentions and carrying out the act for you? I mean, do you know how you flex your muscles, circulate your blood, move your joints and ligaments, and so forth? If you have the intention to get up and go make a glass of water, don't you just do it? You don't think, first I shift my weight onto my right leg, then I lean forward, then I press my right foot into the ground and begin standing. Then I walk, left step, right step, left step, right step. To give you another example, when you sleep at night, there's a mechanism called sleep paralysis that disconnects the mind from the body so that your body doesn't act out your dreams while you're asleep. But every so often, this connection gets reestablished and people begin sleepwalking or sleep talking and saying ridiculous things in their sleep. So if you are the body, are you consciously deciding to say silly things? Why would you do that? In truth, nobody is saying silly things. The mind is just spontaneously creating a dream, and the body is spontaneously acting out the dream. There is nobody actually there doing any of it. So I say all of that to lead into this point. The only way to actually love the body and have a healthy relationship to it is to know that you are not the body. If you are identified with it, then you can only judge it, critique it, and resent it. When you know that it is something other than you, then you begin to see it as a faithful servant, a loyal companion, something to be loved and thanked for its relentless service to you. So, how exactly does the ego create this illusory belief that you are the body? Let's take a closer look. Each and every night, you fall asleep and forget yourself in order to enter the dream world. And in the same way that you must forget the waking state in order to have a dream, so also consciousness must forget itself in order to assume the role of the person living in the world. The purpose of forgetting itself is to remember itself. That which is infinite can never be something finite. but it can dream that it is. The ego is the tool that the source uses to create the illusory belief that you are a body. Because the ego is bound to the dream world, it can only reference the past and define you according to it. Every memory the ego has to pull from was experienced through the 5 senses of the body. So the ego is always remembering you having each experience as a body, not through a body. This is identification, and this is how the mind is convincing you that you are the body. It is being remembered. The image you have of yourself is completely built on memories of being a body in a world, rather than being the witness of both. When we believe that we are a body, the sense of a separate existence is created. And this is why A Course in Miracles defines the ego as the belief in separation. That which is born must die, and so the ego constantly holds the threat of death over you. The Course says, temptation has one lesson it would teach in all of its forms. It would persuade the Holy Son of God he is a body, born in what must die, unable to escape its frailty, and bound by what it orders him to feel. So, one of the most powerful practices that you can do is to just consistently meditate upon and contemplate the body as being a thing in and of itself. To see it as a creature that carries out your bidding, a servant to the mind that moves it. At first, the idea that you are not the body will seem totally absurd. Your ego will dismiss it as being something that only a fool could possibly believe. But as you continue to sit with it, the old conditioning patterns begin to break themselves down, and you start to become increasingly skeptical about this belief. As often as this belief manifests in the mind, just continue to question it. Am I really the body? Because I don't even know how I breathe, for crying out loud. I just do it. Maybe more accurately stated, it just happens. Only because there is a voice in the mind constantly claiming credit for its every action do I believe the silly notion that I am the one doing it. Once investigated, the idea completely falls apart. Pretty soon, you can't even believe that you didn't see through it much sooner. You really expect me to believe that I'm doing billions of things all at once, all the time. I mean, why stop there? Might as well claim credit for the rotation of the galaxy while we're at it. But that's precisely the thing that you must come to see. You never believed that you were the body. The ego believes it, and you were simply listening to its voice. Without the voice of ego, you would see reality perfectly clear. I am pure awareness, observing everything that happens. I am like a cinema screen on which everything appears. I am not a body living in a world, but the body and the world are both appearances inside of me. They are both images on the movie screen. The world and the body are just reflections of the one reality. And the ego looks at the reflection of the body and says, I am that. And in that moment, the unlimited and the limited are confused and taken to be the same thing. So the Course in Miracles says, the body is the ego's home by its own election. It is the only identification with which the ego feels safe, since the body's vulnerability is its own best argument that you cannot be of God. This is the belief that the ego sponsors eagerly. So this is the reason why identification with the body must be transcended if you are to ever attain liberation from suffering. If you don't believe that you are the body, then the ego cannot manipulate you through death, loss, harm, or judgment in any way. When you know that you are eternal and perfect and already free, then what can the ego threaten you with? The belief I am the body is the ego's chief weapon against you. It is the root cause of all suffering, and identification with it binds you to the laws of nature, survival of the fittest, and the world of comparisons. You are forced to live under the constant pressure of needing to be better than everyone, and to protect yourself from everything, and to suffer every loss that the body suffers. You must always compare yourself with your past and find yourself lacking. So only this belief needs to be escaped, and suffering is over. Once the conviction that you are not the body becomes so firmly established that you no longer think, feel, and act on its behalf, then it will not take you long to discover that you are the universal self, the one reality in which all things live and move and find their being. The ego has no reality of its own. It must borrow all of its reality from you. So the moment you decide to abandon the belief in being a body, the ego's reality begins to fade. When you decide to abandon this belief, the mind will begin to fight you. It will try to show you all the images from your past of you living as a body in a world. But all you need to do is see those images for exactly what they are. Images. I am the awareness that watches the body moving in the world. I am the invisible inside the visible. But behind these eyeballs, infinity itself is looking out, seeing its own reflection in everything. And this is what the Course means when it says, Christ's vision has one law. It does not look upon a body and mistake it for the Son whom God created. It beholds a light beyond the body, an idea beyond what can be touched, a purity undimmed by errors. It sees no separation, and it looks on everyone, on every circumstance, all happenings and all events, without the slightest fading of the light that it sees. This is the key to attaining what the Course calls the vision of Christ. Once you do not see yourself as a body, you will not see other people as bodies either. Every person you meet becomes a doorway to freedom. But if you see your brother as a body, separate from you, the door is closed, because the light of the One is only seen through eyes that meet it everywhere.